Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Absolute Paranormal Disclosure. My name is Eddie Abbott. I'll be your host tonight. This is episode number one, and we're going to get into some stuff that most people don't want to talk about. Well, I was an intelligence analyst in the United States Army. I put my credentials up on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a deep dive into all the paranormal things that are on your mind. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to start off trying to figure out this whole UFO alien discussion. If you want to call it aliens, or are we the aliens? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to try to figure things out. But the main topic that I like to cover is the facts that we are not. So we know we're not alone. The government has admitted UFOs are something. They don't know what it is. But here's what I'm going to tell everybody. We don't need the goddamn government to admit anything, right? We know they're lying. We know what we see. We know what's in the sky. We know we're not. We didn't just go from absolute machines that crank out oil and grease to supercomputers that fit on my wrist in a watch in a very small period of time. I mean, we're talking from the 40s all the way till, we'll just go from the 40s to 2000. So you got about a 53-year period there if you can look at the Roswell crash, and you're going to say, okay, things came from Roswell, from what we recovered. And if we take that and we do the 53-year test, where were we? You know, we're going to get into stuff like that. We're going to really look at where we were. At what point did we start to elevate? When did we started getting into fiber optics? When did we do the lasers? Microchips? When do we get away from all that transistors and vacuum tubes? You know, and I'm not taking anything away from human beings. We are the smartest apes on the planet, hands down. We all know that. But it really comes down to, what are we? Are we as intelligent as we like to believe? Or are the smartest dummies leading us right now? Because we're all kind of dumb, if you ask me. If we have beings that have been around for millions of years, longer than we have, how smart are we? We're still Stone Age, if you ask me. If we compare ourselves to what we even, fantasize about, and our fantasies probably don't even touch the reality of what other beings from other worlds can do. You get kind of wrapped up in what you've seen, like in a movie or a TV show, and suddenly that becomes your identity of a situation. Like when people hear, that we're out in space and we're traveling, everybody thinks Star Trek, Star Wars. I mean, it pops in your head and it's normal. That's what happens. It's human nature to we have to come up with an image to go with a topic. And that's what's going on in our minds, right? So now we're thinking, okay, well, then if that's what it is, and Star Wars, they got blue flames coming out of their UFOs, and no, I'm telling you no. I know people want to believe that we've made a whole bunch of UFOs and we're flying them around and we're trying to trick people. I'm telling you, people, I was a intelligence analyst, 500th MI Brigade in Hawaii, which is Pacific headquarters. I worked in S3, which is probably the most secretive room you could possibly want to be in, right? And when I say I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm talking about. I was a whistleblower on the Linda Moulton Howe show, Earth Bombs, which is still to this date her highest audience, even when she replays the show. And there was a two-part show, and she had to cut down a lot of it. So we got into a lot. But if you've seen my interview with Linda Moulton Howe, then you know what I know, and you know that I know things before Skinwalker Ranch even came out. I was trying to tell people exactly where they are, how many of them are here, and things that I knew. When I was in, I knew a lot of things. You find out a lot of things, believe it or not, the old saying, loose lips sink ships, right? No, that doesn't just go to the Navy. That goes to the Army too, man. People like to talk. I like coffee, so sometimes I'm going to stop and take a drink. But we got to look back at like the Cold War between the United States and Russia. So this all comes after World War II. There was a big rush to take these Nazi scientists and split them up. Everybody wanted the scientists, and probably not a bad idea. They were really smart. They had technologies that we didn't have, and they can produce things that we couldn't. And a lot of people look at the Nazis and they don't believe a lot of things that they hear, but the Nazis were extremely advanced, extremely. And there was no comparison. If they had finished what they had started, it would be a different world today. So thank God we got there when we did. Then we stole all these guys that we should have put in prison and we brought them here. And now they're deep in our government and they're still here. I mean, you can say, oh, they're all dead. No, well, the guys originally that were here are dead, but other people come along behind that. And it's the same train of thought, it's the same mindset. So we didn't kill off the Nazis. We kind of adopted the Nazis. As well, the Russians did the same thing. Who got the better of the scientists? It comes down to that. What does it boil down to? Who got the smarter Nazis? Us or them? And then you got a Cold War, right? So, and that brought about a lot of psychic warfare. So the Cold War wasn't just a war on who's got nuclear missiles, who can do what. We started to dabble, and I believe the Russians did as well, into psychic warfare. So we start programs and we use remote viewers. We tried to see if it would work. So then you bring in like around 1972, I believe, and it was a PSYOPs program, and it was started out at Stanford University, SRI, which was Stanford Research Institute, right? SRI was Hal Puthoff, and it was Russell Tark. These two guys started the program. And it was probably a genius idea because once you start realizing people do really possess psychic ability, you need to start getting that on our side, right? We need to see if it'll work. And that's what they were trying to do. So once that scenario played out, they found a guy named Ingo Swann. Now, this Ingo Swann guy claimed to be a great psychic. He claimed that he had these abilities and he could do all kinds of stuff that other people just couldn't do. So they brought him in and they ran tests with him and they made him do all kinds of stuff. The first test they gave him, they took a magnetometer, which detects like a nuclear blast. And they had a magnetometer buried under 30 feet of concrete in a black insulated box. And what they do when you do remote viewing, they'll write down like coordinates on a piece of paper, or they'll write down, like a code word. And then if you're psychic enough, you can take just that information off of that paper and you can see it in your brain. And you can actually be almost like it's like a memory that you have, but you've never, ever remembered it because you never saw it before. But it feels like a living memory. So that's what remote viewers can do. They say everybody can do it. They say that they can train anybody to remote view. We all have the ability. I believe them. The human brain isn't used the way it should be. It is full of areas that we just don't use. That's why I say we're the smartest apes on the planet because we have not evolved past that ape stage. We might drive cars, we might build things, we might do all these things, but we are not so advanced that we don't need to get rid of, crude things that keep our lives simple. We could go a lot more efficient. We don't need oil. The Earth's full of energy. When we start pulling the energy from the planet, then we can get rid of electricity. We don't need fuel anymore. And we know how to do this. That's the bad thing. People that have come up with these energy devices that give you free energy from the earth have all disappeared. And that is no joke. Anybody that even tried to make a box that could feed you free energy. You could plug into these boxes, and they were made. There's been a few people that made them. Somehow or another, they all disappeared. It's not a joke. You can look it up yourself. So they don't want us to have free energy. They don't want to change the structure of the world. In fact, they're killing the middle class off right now because it's too hard for them to be in power when there's people just below the upper class that have a voice. So it's easier to raise prices that we don't even need raised. We're getting to the point of ridiculousness. And then we're going to shove everybody in the middle class all the way down. We're going to have two classes, right? You're going to have the rich and you're going to have the poor. Everybody has to realize that's what's going on right now. And you need to realize this too. The busier they keep us worrying about dumb stuff like that, the more they can do the things they're doing behind the scenes. And then our attention isn't where it should be. Our attention is on trivial things. And I'm telling you, that's part of the biggest problem with humans. If you ever realize that you get interested in something, right? Say you see a story on TV and you got interested in this story. Within 10 minutes, if you don't hyper think it, if you're not hyper vigilant on that topic, it slips by, right? And it's not so important anymore. What we need to start doing is treating things like UFOs, where we fit in the universe, like we treat a book. When you read a book, that book becomes something that you can't put down. And it's not because, it's so intriguing. It's because now we're deeply diving into something, whether it could be a bad book, it doesn't matter. When you start reading a book and you get the story and now your brain's starting to give you images, you're in it. You're going to read it till the very end, whether it's great or it sucks. I mean, that's just a fact. So that's what we need to start doing with this topic. Anything paranormal that's going on, and I mean anything. Paranormal is something that is out of the ordinary. It's not normal, so we call it paranormal, right? So we start doing stuff like that. We get hyper vigilant about these topics. They can't blow us off, man. We get little startup wars here and there, and they're constantly keeping us distracted. It's a constant distraction. And it's orchestrated because all the governments in the world, whether they're going to tell the truth or not, they're all involved. I know this for a fact. I used to have to salute people on my base at the intelligence base in Fort Huachuca from every country in the world that would come on base. I'm like, why am I saluting everybody? We shouldn't even have these people here. And they would come on the base. You'd salute them. You'd have to stand at attention, and it's kind of weird. And I could see we respect them and everything, but we literally had to stop walking, man. And then they would go in the main school, and then they disappeared. We all already knew everything was underground. It's not just at Fort Huachuca, but there's so many underground facilities all over our country. And I'm not even going to talk about the world right now. We're going to talk about the country. Our country's loaded. There are so many underground facilities. They like to, tell you about Mount Weather and all that, but there are more facilities and cities under the ground that we build. We have tube shuttles under the ground. So say the president was in Los Angeles, getting that tube shuttle under the ground, you're back in Washington, D.C. in less than 2 hours. No airplane flight, no danger. No one's going to blow the plane up. They'll send that plane by itself without him on it, and they will tube shuttle him. I guarantee you that happens. When you're worried about the safety of your president and you've got underground facilities like this, because they're constantly going to them, because there's so much shit going on under the ground, it's unbelievable. Things that we probably would never allow to happen are happening under there. And that's why you need to understand there are two governments. There is the one that we see that it's the puppet show government. We elect people, blah, blah, blah. There's another government that don't give a shit. They're not elected and they're not going nowhere. There's no term limit. When you die, next man up. It's literally how it goes. And there's some sinister ass people. They don't care. They have an agenda. They don't want us to know the truth because they don't want us rebelling and freaking out about what's really going on at the planet. So we're going to get into some of that stuff. We're gonna do some deep dives. Anyway, I want to get back to what I was saying. So Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ bring in Ingo Swann. They put the magnetometer under the concrete in the black box. It's insulated, right? So we got 30 feet of concrete below, then a magnetometer, which is just like a little device. And it's inside of this box. And he is given the task to tell us where, what do you see? And they just give him up. Here's the number. Say, let's just say, for giggles and grins, here's your target is 22417. Tell us what 22417 is. And Ingo Swann told him, I see a device in a box, and it's a meter, and it measures the heat. He described the magnetometer. So when that happened, the CIA, which were there, freaked out. I mean, it was a game changer. How do you see a magnetometer 30 feet under concrete in an insulated box? I mean, it's just not normal stuff. So they knew that if he could detect this device that can detect a nuclear blast under 30 feet of concrete in a box, wow, this guy could probably detect a whole lot more for us. He could spy on the enemy without ever leaving this room. So that's what they do. So after their concern, they told Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, hey, this is no, we don't think we like this. It became a fear in the beginning, and then changed everything. You know, they brought something to the table that the government just couldn't walk away from, and that's what it comes down to. And then they brought in another, right? So they brought this other guy called Pat Price in. And according to everything you've ever heard about Pat Price, and if you read about him or hear about him, you do some research, they said he was the most gifted psychic ever. There was nothing he could not see or detect with his mind. It was amazing, according to what I read. Let me look at something here. It said that they were looking for underground bases, right? So they brought Pat in and they asked him, hey, we need you to tell us what these targets are. They had an inkling of what they were looking for. So they give Pat, one envelope, and Pat's got to go start looking at all over there. What does he see when they give him the very first target? And I'll tell you, the first target they gave him was a place called Mount Hayes in Alaska. Now, there's good reason to give Pat that target because Mount Hayes is a hot spot for UFOs. It's unbelievably a hot spot. I'm going to take a quick drink. So you have this unbelievable hot spot. And what Pat said he saw was a huge base inside of a hollow mountain. So, and they asked him, well, what do you see inside of this base? And, when you're a remote viewer, they start writing on the paper and then, they'll draw pictures or whatever. And Pat said he had saw this huge base filled with technology that he couldn't believe how much technology was inside of this base. Now we're talking back in the 70s, right? So he's describing control rooms, computers. What else did he say? There was computer consoles. They were unrecognizable. So it's something he had never seen before, but he knew what they were from his psychic ability. There were machines, he said, that he had never seen before. They weren't even familiar in any way, but he knew they were machines. And then they asked, okay, so who's operating all of this stuff in this hidden base, Pat? And so he had to think again and go into his state. And he said that there were operators in there, and they were almost human looking, very thin, large heads, huge eyes. And he said they were working side by side with human beings. which caused everybody to pause. Now, I don't know what trigger Pat hit when he said that, but I believe that the CIA came in and ended the session immediately. If I'm not mistaken, they said once he finished, he went back to his hotel, right? And on his way into the hotel room, he ran into a person and felt a huge pain in his leg. He went back up in his room and he died. Now, Pat was 56 years old. There was no indication of a health problem or anything. And then when they found him dead, they immediately removed the body. There was no investigation whatsoever in the room. So they went looking for him the next morning and they found him. They brought him out of the room. They brought him into their facility and said that he had died from a heart attack, but never performed an autopsy. And then here's the kicker. So you say he died of a heart attack, no autopsy given, then they cremated him. And when they cremated him, they called his wife and told her, your husband died of a heart attack, and we're sorry for your loss, but we've already cremated him. Now, what the fuck is that? I'm telling you, the CIA was created immediately after the Roswell crash. We had the Project Paperclip guys, the Nazi scientists that we took from Germany, and they informed our government where they had got their technology. And our government was all over it. So the Nazis led us down the rabbit hole that they got their technology from a crash that they had discovered in the 30s. And they also had a psychic woman. You know what? I'm going to try if I can get her name for you guys. Marie Olsnick or something like that. She was a extremely gifted psychic. For real, they believe she was a hybrid because her genetics were just a little different. She was extremely beautiful. And the next episode we'll talk about her. We'll go into some depth, but yes, that's what Hitler had kept this woman around for. She told him everything. She could actually psychically contact these beings from other worlds and on our planet. And that's where they got the ideas on how to take that spaceship they recovered and fix it. So they were in the process of doing that. They actually made a few of them. We got there not long after, so it didn't go anywhere. And those ships were captured and taken, and they will not tell you about it. So you're in this goddamn rabbit hole, and nobody knows what's going on because there's so much going. Do you understand what I'm saying? So anyway, they found Pat dead, cremated him, tell his wife all this crazy stuff, and they get away with it. So how do you do that to somebody that you had working for you that was totally fine, was on a covert mission, and then here's another kicker. Pat was buried in Hollywood, California, in an unmarked grave. Well, you know, if you're married, doesn't your wife bury you? Or did they never give that body back to his wife? Because he was buried in an unmarked grave, and they have proof of it. And I've seen it. He is in a numbered grave, no name. With all of his science buddies and all of the money they had, nobody wanted to give him a headstone. Yeah, I don't get it at all. You know, he was in the CIA for less than 4 months, and all of a sudden he's dead and cremated that quick. Once he saw aliens and humans working side by side in Mount Hayes, Alaska. Can you imagine how his wife must have felt? And you know what's funny? I'm curious what happened to his wife. I'm wondering, was she bought off? Because we haven't heard anything about that. And I did some looking at it. I can't find anything, which is not unusual, you know. And when you get into this kind of stuff and you're in intelligence and then there's counterintelligence and then there's black ops, and there's things that if they want to bury it, they're going to bury it. Nobody's going to find it. And then they're going to create things and put websites up, and it's all bullshit. but they're going to make it look real can be. So if they want to give somebody credit, let's say David Grush is full of shit. I'm just saying as an example. Let's call David Grush a plant. They could take their time, groom this guy. He knows his mission. They're going to create all these credentials for him. They're going to put all this stuff out so people find it and say, oh, wow, it's real. He's got a degree, blah, blah, blah. And the whole time it's counterintelligence. The guy doesn't have shit for a degree. You know, the guy is a plant. He's here lying to you. He is Mr. Disinformation. I'm not saying that's what David Grush is. What I'm saying is that's how it works, and we buy it. And I mean, we literally buy into most of this crap that they put in front of us. So, you know, we got to be careful. But anyway, so then after the Pat Price incident, they called in more remote viewers, and they called the Project Grill Flame. No, that's the truth. You can look it up. Project Grill Flame was what they started to call their remote viewing project in the CIA. Later, that became Project Stargate, which was the name that they use that everybody recognizes. But it originally was Project Grill Flame, like you're barbecuing something. Again, I like coffee. Sorry. So they brought in more remote viewers, and then they were who was it? Oh, who was it? Skip Atwater. Skip Atwater. He was the guy from the army, and he was an intelligence officer. And now he did all the recruiting and the training for these remote viewers that they were bringing in. And, you know, if they figured if they could get hits off any of these people, then they can spy on the Russians, man. We can look at the Chinese, we can look at everyone. No, this is the way to go. And it was believed because later a defective KGB agent came to America and admitted he was sent to America to Nevada to kill a psychic that was spying on Russia by poisoning him. And that's exactly what happened to Pat Price. So, you know, you can put two and two together there. I can't verify what the KGB agent's name was or any of that, but I do know that you look it up, you will find that that is absolute fact. There was a KGB agent that got out of Russia and said he had poisoned a psychic in America they believe was spying on Russia. So we start getting into new remote viewers, right? New remote viewers are coming into the picture, and now we got Project Stargate going, and everybody was tasked to look at Mount Hayes, Alaska. They wanted to see are they going to get anything different. And we need to know some facts about Mount Hayes because today's show is about just Mount Hayes. Tomorrow we're going to do a different episode. But today we're talking about Mount Hayes, Alaska. That'll give you time to do some homework on what we're talking about, right? So Mount Hayes is in the Alaska Triangle. There are triangles all over the planet. The Dragon's Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, Bermuda Triangle, the Michigan Triangle. There's Lake Michigan has a triangle. Well, we know there are craft come in and out of our lakes all the time. So, but there is a triangle. You know, they're all over the planet. You know, Stonehenge is in a triangle. You know, and they start looking at ley lines and all that good stuff. And you know, the planet is loaded with a lot of energy dispersing, you know, natural occurrences that could be harnessed for a lot of things, but we are not allowed to think past the cornflakes box and reach for the orange in the bowl in the middle of the table. We have to stay in our little bowl of cereal and read the box while we're eating it. So they've got us trained, they've got us where they want us, and they're not going to let us go. I can tell you, we're going to have to fight tooth and nail to do this. So between you and I was in the army, and I'm going to tell you right now, the people, and not all the people in control, they're in a different zone. It's almost like cold, calculated, don't give a fuck about you. They're on a mission and they're almost inhuman at times. So they'll do some crazy shit. We'll get into what happened to me in the army. When you start getting a little close to knowing too much, shit happens. I'll just tell you that much right now. So, Mount Hayes is in Alaska. It's in the Alaska Triangle. And since 1988, over 88, over 16,000 people have gone missing in the Alaska Triangle, most of them near Mount Hayes. Now, 16,000 people. Think about the population of Alaska. That is unbelievably huge, right? Nationwide, 7 people to every 100,000 go missing. Nationwide, that's the average. You got 2 people per 100,000. Two in Massachusetts. Two. So they're really low. But we're also talking Hawaii, right? In Hawaii, 16 people to every 100,000 people go missing. Just giving you an idea. Alaska's 10 times higher than Hawaii. 10 times. There's 173 people to every 100,000 that have gone missing. Now we're going to sit here and say Alaska's a rugged place. You could go somewhere and get buried in snow. Yeah. Let's say, I'll even be cool about it. Let's say 95% of the people missing in Alaska, even though it's no way, have gone missing naturally, right? Fell in the water, buried, you got buried under an avalanche, you froze to death, nobody found your body, but people are looking for you. That's bullshit. So you'd have to be in a very, very remote area not to be found. And the scavengers would pick you apart and they'd find your bones sooner or later, right? And it's not like Alaska's under permafrost. It does melt and you can see the ground. So when we start looking at numbers like that, most of the people in Alaska that live in the Alaska Triangle go missing in that area. It's the center of the Alaska Triangle is Mount Hayes. It is the hottest spot for UFOs in the world. There's more UFO sightings near Mount Hayes than anywhere. It's unbelievable. Sorry, I'm a bald guy. That whole thing's tickle in the back of my head. Anyway, so you start looking at the area in and around Mount Hayes. It's very harsh, very cold, very desolate place, right? But the natives that lived there for centuries have talked about strange beings that come out of that mountain and then disappear into thin air after they take somebody, that they will come out and literally they would come out and take people, grab them, and fade away. And they'd never see that person again. But they know that they came out of the mountain because that's what they did. They watched. They didn't have TV, they didn't have cell phones. They knew their environment. So when we try to discard what Native American people would say, we need to start thinking about, okay, their context is different than ours, but they didn't understand technology. So if you start looking at things that they describe and put a technological feel to it, put our knowledge in place of their story, it all starts to make sense. This has been going on forever. I already know that. They're thousands of years they've been here. This is their planet. This is not our planet. Everybody thinks they're coming from great distances, which they can do because they can fold space and time. They have a gravitational drive on their craft that they put the emitters towards the front of the craft, and the craft will tip up on an angle and it'll start flying this way for real. And what it does is it opens up a gap in front of and it sucks it forward. And that's why they go so quick. And what happens once the atmosphere collapses back on itself, it kind of collapses in a swirling motion. So if you look really close, you'll see swirls behind these UFOs. It's because it's the atmosphere itself going back together after their gravitational field has created a black hole, basically, that they travel. So when they go, 14,000 miles an hour, bam, dead stop, then turn right, turn left, and do all this stuff. And we're going, there's no way. They can't be occupying that vehicle because we are the dumb apes into us. We can't do it, so nobody can do it, right? when you live within a gravitational field like we do here on Earth, we don't know what's going on with the planet. It's spinning and we don't feel it spinning, and things hit it. We don't feel the things hit it. We just are, we're kind of like ignorant to a point because we're in the gravitational field of Earth. And what causes a gravitational field? We don't know. We have not figured that out. We cannot recreate a gravitational field. It has something to do with magnetic activity, but you need a couple more elements involved with the electromagnetic activity to create gravity. And they understand that much, but I even believe they understand what the element itself is, but I don't think that is a readily available element on this planet. So if we're going to recreate something that we've been trying to recreate for centuries, it's going to be a miracle. I mean, I understand why they reverse engineer things. I understand what they're trying to do. Whoever's got the best toys on the planet, it's the power of the planet. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So we're not going to tell anybody what we found. We're not going to disclose a goddamn thing because we don't need China, Iran, Russia. We don't need nobody to know what we got, right? And that's the whole problem. So everybody's like, well, they need to tell the truth. Listen, most of those people don't know a goddamn thing. They don't know what's going on because we have a secondary government that really runs everything. If you look at your budget, say you're a political person, start looking into your budget and tell me where all that money's going. They cannot put a trace on most of the money that's coming in from taxpayers. And some people will say, oh, we're giving it away. No, that's bullshit. We're not giving a lot of money away. We're giving some assets away, but we are not giving a lot of money away. Our money's getting filtered. And there's other agencies involved that don't even have acronyms. So I know there's a secondary government. There's people that like to walk around in suits and tell, when I was in the Army, they'd come in and tell my CO what the fuck to do. And we'd be like, who are these guys? And your CO is acting a little nervous. You start realizing, okay, there's some powerful people. My CO was a full blown colonel. And if a general came in, of course, he's going to be subservient to that general. But these guys were not military, man. We'd see him every so often. I would have to go cover my CO's office for him so he can go to these meetings with these guys, and of course, I'm going to be the guy, right? Because I was like the new guy when I got there, and they got comfortable with me just sitting in his office and watching everything going on, and I built the trust up, and I'm telling you, man, some really funky shit was going on there, and I went in at 36 years old, so I wasn't no dumb kid. I could figure things out pretty quick, and there's a lot of like shady things that go on, and start wondering, right? So anyway. So we get down to the nuts and bolts of these missing people. How come so many people are going missing in Alaska? How come? Why? If you watch that movie, what is the hell is that movie? Mila Jovovich, The Fourth Kind. You watch that, it's a true story. And they explain to you in that movie, even, I don't know what the numbers were in the movie, but they explain to you how many people actually go missing in Alaska. It's unbelievable. So they can't just all disappear. So now that we know the epicenter in the Alaska Triangle is Mount Hayes, right? So people report more UFOs there than anywhere. And here's the kicker on that one. So they not only see the UFOs go to the mountain, well, it's not just a mountain, so I don't want you to get the wrong impression. Mount Hayes is probably, I don't know, over 1,000 miles long, the range. It's a range. So in this section of Mount Hayes, which is up toward dead in the center of the Alaska Triangle, which, I'll have to find graphics for you on that. But right now, this is just a greet, meet and greet type show, and we're going to get into one thing today, and that's Mount Hayes. So Mount Hayes is in the middle of this Alaska Triangle, and people have watched all these UFOs not only go to the mountain, but go through the mountain. And I've explained to people over and over, and I don't think people really want to believe what I have to say, but these craft can move matter out of their way. We have no idea. We don't have a clue. We know it's tied to the propulsion system of the craft, that gravitational field, but there are other elements involved with that field that we just have no clue about. They can go through water, like we know they can travel at the same speed in the air they can in the water. Nothing touches the craft, nothing. So now we know they open a black hole, a mini tiny little black hole, and it sucks that shit forward. How do they move that quick? That's how. They're just being sucked forward. So just like opening a wormhole, right? So you got space and time. So you want to go from Earth back to whatever planet you're from. What do? Wormhole. Go through it, back open. Now people have reported seeing things in the sky like holes open in the sky, and you could see daylight in the hole, like a whole different sky. And then it closes. And they've captured this on camera. And we're still sitting here bullshitting around, waiting for the government to tell us the truth. Why do we need the government to tell us the truth? We know the truth. When did we lose our power? See, now everybody's got to understand the government works for us. They're hired hitman to do jobs we don't have time to do. We have families to feed, we have our own jobs. So since we can't do that job, we hire hitmen to go and do our dirty work. And that's all they are. And they're dirty fuckers too, right? I don't care what party you like, not one of them out there is 100% honest that they're sucking it up too. Anyway, so inside this Alaska Triangle, the geology of it, it's covered in this like negative magnetic field, and they don't understand that. But there are so many anomalies, right? So when you get a magnetic field that operates in reverse, basically, nothing works right in there. I mean, it's like phenomenal. If you try to fly through there, nothing's going to work right. They, it's like the Bermuda Triangle, same thing, same idea. You go through there, you have all your meters are going crazy. You don't know what your compass is doing, and you could be flying through a vortex for all you know. You have no idea, right? We don't understand this kind of science, and that's the problem. So people make fun of it because they don't understand it. People laugh about it. When you don't understand reality and you're living in a fake world, everything that's real, is going to seem like a joke to you because it's not your false world that you've lived in. It's not the place that you recognize. And then that's where people, all the naysayers come out and all that. So we have got to keep our perspective on what we understand. It isn't whether it's real. It isn't whether they're here. They are here. They've been here. How do you dig yourself into a planet so deep with nobody watching? Come on now. You have to do that when the seeding occurs. Let's put it that way. When you seed the planet and you seed the wildlife on the planet, because to them we're just animals. They do have a scientific interest in us, but not to the point that we wish they would. I believe most people are wishful thinkers. I think people wish that the aliens really cared about us and they're going to save us. They're not. If we're going to blow up the planet, they're going to intervene. If we're going to kill ourselves, they're not. They don't care. It's like us sitting in our house looking outside at a flock of birds. They are a facet of the planet we live on, and that is it. They're interesting. Yeah, sure, we like to watch specials on them, but they don't affect my day to day, so I don't care. I don't give it much thought. I think monkeys are cute. I think apes are cool, but man, they don't. I'm not going to run in and save them. We only save them when it's a conservation effort, right? So if we start becoming extinct, they'll just start over. They're already taking our DNA and mixing it with their DNA, and they're creating different hybrids. You're getting this RH blood type that comes out that has never been here before. It's the first sign something is different. We're getting blood types on the planet that just don't match human beings on the planet ever. We got to start getting wise. What is going on in Alaska? Today's show is about Mount Hayes. I need you guys to do me a favor. I need you to go look up Mount Hayes. I need you to start doing a little bit of homework because we need to start getting educated as a group. We cannot just be educated and then forget about it. We need to get smarter. The smarter we get, the harder we push. We don't need the goddamn government to tell us what's going on. It's in front of us. Do you understand me? I was in the government. They're lying. We covered it up. We get FOIA requests. All we have to do is say, if we can't find it, must have lost it. And that's what happened all the time. I'm just being honest with you. Your fucking FOIA requests out the window. We don't have time for your shit. We're not telling you anything. There's too much at risk. And that's what we got to start realizing. We are not going to get told the truth. What's going to happen, and you mark my words, because the government's feeling the pressure. So they're setting up like a scenario. And what they're doing is they're using the media. So now the media becomes the ultimate tool in disclosure. You watch Skinwalker Ranch. Start doing your homework on who these people are on the ranch. They're not just a collective group of people that this Brandon put together. These people have a little bit more to their backstop story than we're getting. Okay, Dr. Travis Taylor is a little too involved with the United States government, NASA, and the UAP task force. He is in deep. So what I believe, and then we're going to go on just my hypothesis. The government's feeling the pressure. It's coming from every which way it can come from. Whistleblowers are crawling out of the woodwork. The lid on the paint can is off, and the paint can is starting to drip. So what do you do? Because you're about to look like the biggest liars in the world. You've been telling people for years, nothing to it. We don't know anything about it. Case closed. It never happened. Dummies from a damn weather balloon. There were no real bodies. There was no crap. Listen, you can't go back from that. There's no possible way to go back from the lies you put in place. When you look at a counterintelligence operation like that, it is a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. They're not about to just bend over and look like a bunch of idiots. So what I believe they have done is they have assembled a team. Brandon Fugel is a, very wealthy real estate mogul in Utah. Robert Bigelow had that ranch, and he was on that ranch for quite some time. It was highly secretive, and nobody knows what Robert Bigelow found in that ranch. But Brandon Fugel got that ranch dirt cheap, and then all of a sudden, there's a public investigation going on. Now, I could be wrong. As an analyst, I'm looking at this from different angles. I'm seeing it from different angles. I'm picking up pieces other people just don't pick up. Like that Eric, what is his name? Eric Bard or something, that lead investigator. They don't tell you Eric Bard is a plasma physicist. They didn't bring that up. They let you think he's just some guy in a tan shirt that sits behind computer screens and he's really smart, but he's a plasma physicist. And that man is in charge, I promise you. He and Dr. Taylor are running the show. It's set up like a military system, the way that they act, the structure of it. It's all under design. This isn't just some random group of people that are getting lucky. No, this is not. You got that dragon guy, and then what's the other? Caleb. He's a police officer for one. He's a sheriff's deputy. So he's not just a security guard on a ranch. There are so many other people on that ranch you don't even know about. They're everywhere. Security all over. Don't ever try to get in there. But what I believe is going on is the government's like, well, it's going to come out. We are not ready for it to come out because we probably don't have the upper hand like we want to have over the rest of the world, but we're pushing. The people are pushing. It's getting spooky for them. Now we come up with different distractions. We'll send our military here. Gas prices go up. Food prices go up. Now people will start focusing more on their lives and stop worrying about this shit because we're making it really difficult for them. So that's how it works in the government. They do that. You don't have to believe me. That's fine. But they create scenarios to keep you busy so they can do whatever they're doing, dinking and dunking behind the scenes. So let's use the people that we've put in place at Skinwalker Ranch and let's blow the lid off this thing that way. And it'll come from these people that look like private sector people so the government can save face and pretend when it does happen. We didn't know, man. I mean, we didn't know none of this. This is crazy. Now we have to act. And that's where we're headed. I see the operation has shifted, and I have a very foreboding feeling after the listen, man. I've said to everybody when I blew the whistle. They're under the mesa, they're under the ocean, they're in the mountains, they're in the moon because the moon is theirs. That's another show. The moon is theirs, and they're inside of the moon. They're not just sitting on they don't like sitting on the surface for one. We are on the surface and we can't escape natural disasters. We can't escape attacks. We're prone to die. The only safe place on any celestial body is within. It can withstand hurricanes. You can live through floods. You can live through massive storms, tsunamis, earthquakes. You are under the ground deep enough, you are fine. A meteor could hit the earth and you are going to be fine, right? There's a whole biosphere within the planet as well. And we know about that. But they are buried within all these planets around us. And I'm not kidding you. I know they're on Mars, and I know that there's some big platform. And you can do some little homework, a little caveat. There's a huge platform within the rings of Saturn, and I forgot it's like little over 3 miles long, and it's sending a signal to Earth. Like every 20 minutes, we get a signal from the rings of Saturn at 1.6 gigahertz. And then now they're finding this signal coming out of Skinwalker Ranch going back into space. Now, what we need to do is find out what direction that signal is going when it leaves Arizona or Utah, I'm sorry, when it leaves Utah and goes into space. Where is it pointed? Right? We sent the Kissimmee out there and it got the rings of Saturn and it's there plain as day, hiding within the rings, a stationary platform. It doesn't even go through an orbit. It's in the gap of the rings, so nothing touches it. It doesn't move. So you think that you're around a planet, you're going to go through an orbit. It's going to draw you. You have no choice. You're part of the damn orbit. But no, this thing is a space platform that hasn't moved. It isn't moving, and it's sending signals. I'm betting you it's not occupied. I'm betting you it's just a communications platform that gets visited. So when they leave our planet, we see them shoot out in space. I guarantee they're going there. It's got to be like a big central hub that they're going to. Now, you got some homework to do. You need to start looking up craft within the rings of Saturn so that you can verify what I'm giving you. You also need to start looking for the signals that are coming in and out of our atmosphere. SETI is bullshit program. It's bullshit. Okay, they're wasting your money. They're drawing your attention away from the truth. They are paid by the government to pull our attention to this ridiculous communications attempt with radio signals. And the aliens are not communicating with radios. It's not happening. So that bullshit needs to go out the window, right? So that's the end of first show. I'm glad you came. I'm glad that you tuned in. I'm glad you stayed for the whole thing, man. We're going to get into other things, but you got homework to do tonight. Mount Hayes in Alaska, missing people in Alaska, 1.6 gigahertz signals leaving the planet, coming to the planet from Saturn's rings. Start looking into that stuff. and we'll see you again on the next show. Y'all take care.